future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
She's passionate about telling stories of amazing women who are rocking the world and empowering women to live, love, and thrive. Here's your host, Catherine Gray.
Hi, and welcome to Live, Love, Thrive Women's Empowerment Hour today. As you know, we're brought to you by 360karma.com. We actually just launched our new site, so be sure to visit. And next week, we are going to have on award-winning director, Cello Alvarez Staley. She is amazing. She just did a documentary called... what is the name of it? Just remembered. Sands of Silence, and it's very important. It's about speaking out about sexual violence against women. So you won't want to miss that next week. We also are going to have the president of Galat Communications, Eden Galat. She's going to talk about crisis PR. Boy, it's a good time for that, isn't it? So, with that being said, if you want to follow us on YouTube, you'll get our programs every week automatically, or you could also follow us on your favorite podcast network, whether it is iHeart, iTunes, Spreaker. You can follow Live, Love, Thrive on any of those. So thanks for tuning in today. We have an incredible show. We are going to later in the show speak with Rabbi Lori Shapiro, who is with the Open Temple in Venice, California. Going to be a great conversation, so stay tuned for that. But first up, we have best-selling author, world-renowned speaker, and relationship expert, who doesn't need that, Lisa Stedman. Please welcome Lisa.
Hi, thank you so much, and congratulations on your website launch.
Oh, thank you. Anybody who's launched a website knows the labor of love that is.
A lot of labor.
Yeah, a lot of labor.
Yeah.
And thanks to my great team, Dana and Carlos over at Wicked Bionic. They're amazing. And my wonderful assistants at Perfect Assistant, they are Roz and Shannon are amazing.
Yes.
So I mean, it does take a village to launch a great website.
It takes a village for any of us to
Yeah.
do anything anymore.
I
So
know.
I love the people that I've spoken to on your team, and just the people I've met today, your makeup artist and Roz.
I
You
know,
have
my
a great
UBN team here
Yeah.
at Universal Broadcasting, they're amazing too. We've got Kurt on the board
Yeah.
and Tony that runs this place, and like you said, my amazing makeup artist, Michelle Brown, who I love. So yeah, it does. And it's so nice to surround yourself with just talented, positive energy people.
I love that.
And Melissa Lilly, my marketing person, and the list goes on of the village it takes. But I am grateful. I am
That's
grateful.
so great.
And I imagine with all that you're doing, you must have an incredible team around you as well.
I do. I say teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah.
And the only way to make the dream work is to have those supportive players on your team, because we do so much.
We do so
We're
much.
multi-passionate.
Yeah. Yep.
We're writing, we're speaking,
Yeah.
we're projecting our voice and sharing it and sharing other people.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that successfully is to have support, because we're supporting so many people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I wanted to mention that we actually met at some good friends, Kathy Painter and Kat Curry Williams'
Yes.
event, which is called Women with a Purpose.
Yes.
And that's where we met, which was wonderful.
It was amazing. And I know
Yeah.
you've had some of the speakers on your show.
I have.
It was
I mean,
so great.
It was
I
such
loved
a great
that.
conference, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I'm actually teaming up with them on some upcoming events, and of course have the Live, Love, Thrive conference in November, which is similar. Again, it's like-minded women coming together
Yes.
to lift each other up. We're in a time where this revolution is about women helping women like never before.
And I love that you said revolution, because it's
Mm-hmm.
the women who I really feel are rising up and rocking that revolution.
Oh, yeah.
And being in sisterhood and partnership rather than splintering and trying to do our own thing on our own.
Right.
I'm so celebrating the many faces and women who've come through your show and been part of your revolution.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely what's happened has lit a fire under women.
Yes.
And that's a good thing. I think maybe we'd been a little complacent.
We were comfortable.
Yeah.
Things were working for us.
Yeah.
And I actually saw Chelsea Handler interview Al Franken over the weekend, and she was saying that it was so comfortable for her prior
Right.
that she has never been more politically active or more vocal about her passions and what she thinks is important
She
for
is
us.
that.
Yeah, and she's always been, an entertainer, but now it's become political. And I
Right.
do think when it was comfortable, we kind of sat back and we're like, somebody else has got it.
Well, and it can't be comfortable for some. It's got to be comfortable for all.
Yes.
And that's why we have to help our sisters here in the U.S. and around the world, because
Yes.
it's important that we empower all women,
You're
right?
so right.
Yeah,
And it
it's
is
going to make
global.
the planet a better place anyway, to have more
Our
women.
planet needs it.
Yes, to have more women at decision-making table is going to make the world a better place.
So
and
true.
it does need it. It absolutely does need it.
Yeah.
Whether it comes to peace or environment or whatever, the future for the kids, it's important to have the women's or the mother's perspective
yes,
at the table.
feminine
Mother Earth.
perspective.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you are doing incredible work to help people have good relationships.
That's my intention.
Yeah, who doesn't want that? I know I am very fortunate and grateful that I have a great relationship, and I want that for everybody.
Me too.
And I love that that's the work you're doing, because people need the books you're writing.
Yes.
They need to hear the speaking that you're doing. Take the workshops you're doing. If they're not in a great relationship,
And even if they are.
because anybody can be.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is what's so important, is the work doesn't end when you meet
True, it never
your
ends.
perfectly
Yeah.
imperfect partner.
Yeah.
It actually begins, because then there's two perfectly imperfect people who are wonderful together. It's how you grow together that
Yes.
really defines that journey. And that doesn't mean there's no work. Like, my husband will be the first person to say, people who say marriage is hard are getting it wrong. And I'm like, it's not that it's hard, but you got to admit there's work and there's participation.
Yeah.
And I think that getting right with you is the first step in that journey.
I heard a cute thing when they interviewed Tom Hanks. I was on some red carpet and they were interviewing him about his marriage, because it's one of the longest
admire
standing
their
in
marriage,
Hollywood.
yes.
Right. Of course, so we all wanted to hear what he had to say. And he said, it's not hard, but it's not easy. And I thought that was a great explanation.
It's so true, because life will throw you curveballs. Life is messy.
Yeah.
Schedules, kids, money.
Right. Well, you might have curveballs. I don't have any, but
Lucky you. You need to write a book about the curveball-free life.
there you go. There's a book.
I like
wish,
that.
I wish. So what was the first book that you wrote, and why?
Yes, my first book was "It's a Breakup, Not a Breakdown," and
I
want to
like that.
Thank you. I needed it, so I wrote it.
Because so many people do break up and do break down, right?
Yes,
So
and that
yeah.
was what I had seen for myself. I had been talking to hundreds and thousands of women and men online before there were blogs, and what I consistently heard was, "This is the end," and my feeling was always, "This is the beginning."
Right. This is the beginning.
And I
yeah.
wanted to show people. So when people say, "I just went through a divorce or a breakup," I always say, "Congratulations."
Yeah.
And it can throw people, because they're like,
Yeah.
nobody's ever said that to me. And I'm like, well, exactly. And this is the gift you've been given. Does it mean you have loss? Yes.
Right.
Does it mean they're shortcutting the grief process? No. Does
Right.
it mean that your future is still amazing? Absolutely.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So instead of it being a finish, it's a new start.
It is, and it's an opportunity to learn more about yourself
Yep.
and to take the things from your past relationships that you genuinely loved and say, I would like that again without the ...
Right.
So whether the without is the money problems or the lack of communication or, whatever the issues were, you can have the beautiful things again with somebody new without the baggage when you get clear about what worked and what didn't and how you participated.
Well, let me ask you this, because I think our listeners might enjoy this part of the conversation of your advice, and that is, my partner always says you should have 3 lists. One, it says, this is what I absolutely must have in a person.
Yes.
Absolutely. And then there's the other side of it that's, this is what I absolutely cannot have.
Yes.
Drug addiction,
Yes,
whatever.
totally
And
agree.
then there's that middle one that this is what I would like. This would be nice, but it's not a must.
Yeah.
And I think people forget that middle list. And they're so set in their ways. I want a person that looks like this, and acts
tall,
like
drives
this. And does
this.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't realize it might not come in the exact package
Yes.
that they envisioned. But if they get everything that they need,
That's a blessing.
some of what they want, and all of what they don't want, well, that's pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I would say that final list that you talked about, because I love the 3 lists, rip that list up. Make it because it's important for you.
Yeah.
But that 3rd list, rip it up because there will be things that you
And
will
which one is
get.
that?
The one that's like, I would like, but it's okay. Like
Yeah.
everybody needs their requirements. Like
Right.
I can't be with a drug user. I can't
Right.
be with someone who's financially messy.
Right.
I can't be with someone who's cruel.
Right.
You know, those are things I can, but some negotiables for me are, what you do for a living or some of those other things.
Right.
But that list that says they have to be this tall, drive this kind of car, have this in the bank.
Yeah.
Bring me flowers every Friday or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That to me is the list that you make because it's fun and playful, but then rip it up. And
Yeah.
the list that I recommend making is
Yeah.
how do I want to feel every day in this relationship?
I love that. Yeah.
And so I want to feel supported. I want to feel loved. I want to feel heard. I want to feel appreciated. I want to feel understood.
right. So don't be in a box with what the package looks
The
like.
package will never, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe you'll get the movie star,
Yeah.
maybe you'll get Brad Pitt, but,
Yeah.
even Brad Pitt we can see has some issues.
Yeah, I'll
so
say.
let's be real about how you want that person to make you feel.
Right.
I had written a story when I was writing my breakup blog in the beginning about some of my pet peeves, and one was a guy who couldn't spell because I'm a writer.
Yeah.
Well, my husband's a horrible speller. Thank God for spell check.
Yeah.
But I knew how I wanted love to feel at that
Right.
point. I got really clear that I'd been attracting love that didn't feel good
Yeah.
because I thought that was the deal.
You know what? That's a great example you just gave. Because I think there are people that would say, "Oh, somebody that can't spell, I can't be with that," and that's ridiculous. It's like, do they make you feel loved? Do they make you feel happy?
Yes.
That's more important than
Yes.
anything.
And this
Yeah.
is why the feeling list is so important. And it's not just a list you put on paper. I recommend that once you've made that list on paper, you then start to speak it out loud every day.
Right.
So that it's a vibration that you're living in. Love, and not I want love to feel, but love is amazing. Love appreciates me. Love understands me. And I have a funny aside about the spelling thing. My niece, who my husband and I have on the weekends, is 6. She's learning how to read. So whenever we're somewhere and we're waiting, we play hangman. Now she's still learning how to spell. My husband has no excuses. So we were playing hangman one day, and I was playing with 2 people who don't know how to spell. And as a word nerd, I was like, I love you guys so much right now. Like, you guys really can't play hangman, but that's okay.
That's funny.
It was still a fun experience,
As long
and I
as you
felt
can
so
find the
loved.
humor in it.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah. They say you don't remember even what people say. You remember how they make you feel.
Yes.
And so that's what you're
everything.
saying. Everything is how you make someone feel. I often tell my friends that are out there looking for somebody that don't, it's like going to the grocery store without a list. You pick up things you don't need.
And
Right?
those could be some costly mistakes.
Exactly. You always pick up the things you don't need. But it's like also too like shopping for a house. Like if you want to buy a house, but you don't know how many bedrooms and bathrooms it has or what location it is or what view it has, then how can you find the house?
Yes.
So I love that you have people do the workshop and the books and, to get a clear picture, because in order to manifest what it is you want, you do have to know what it is that you require and really listen to your insides, like what makes you happy,
Yes.
even down to, I always say little things like, even, this is going to sound silly, but like wanting to go to bed at the same time. Like,
That's a.
I don't know. I don't know. That was important to me. Or
Do you guys
that
go to
wanting
bed at
that
the
wanting,
same time?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, that's amazing.
I know.
We don't, and I'm actually okay with that. I like the
And-
quiet
and,
of.
and that's see, and that works for
Yes,
you.
isn't
So
that
everybody's different in
interesting?
that, or that the room be the same temperature.
Oh yes,
You
that's
know.
a big one. Covers on or off. I mean, some of
Yeah.
those are big because how
Yeah.
you sleep can affect how you feel during the day.
Right.
And back to the house, I think that's such a great analogy. When I bought my condo, it wasn't in my first choice area, but I walked in and I was like, this feels like home.
That is so true. When people go to look to rent or buy a place, it actually is a feeling you get like, oh, I'm home.
Yes, and even now when I go visit my tenants, because I now rent it out, I'm like, it still feels like home. I'm so happy it's your home, but it feels, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's a feeling.
Yeah.
You have to feel at home and feel at home with the person that you're with.
Yes, and this
Yeah.
is what I think where I think so many people get it wrong, because
Right.
we have gotten often accustomed to the challenge and the hard and the difficult, that we don't often give ourselves permission that it can be. We're allowed to feel comfortable with somebody.
Right.
We're allowed to feel safe and secure, and our relationship, we're allowed to have a relationship where we can be the best version of ourselves.
right.
It
Let me
doesn't have to be another way.
And let me ask you about this. Since you're the expert, I want to I want to give my listeners some great advice. But this is advice my mom gave me. Okay,
Yes,
this is
okay.
free.
I love this.
But she didn't give me much advice about relationships except one thing, and it actually was such a golden nugget for me.
Ooh.
And that was the most important thing is compatibility. And I mean, I don't know if you even adhere to this, but I do. I think if two people are
compatibility can mean
compatibility,
so
it
many
can mean so
different
many different
things.
things.
I'm so
Absolutely.
curious.
Absolutely.
So
But-
where do you feel like the compatibility is most important?
Just that we like to do the same things, that we enjoy
Yeah.
the same activities. I think
Yeah.
that's important.
That is a big
Yeah.
deal.
And people will say, oh, well, then you find someone else who likes to do it. And that may very well be, but I like having that compatibility with my partner.
Yes.
You know, if you both like to dance. or-
Yes.
Like I like to dance. I've been in a relationship where the other person didn't like to dance. And then you end up not doing
It's a
something that you
buzzkill.
love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love to travel, and my last boyfriend
Traveling's a
was
great one.
super tall and would complain about airplane seats.
Yeah.
And I thought, this isn't fun.
Yeah.
And now I'm with a man who loves to travel, who like our favorite thing to do is get into a new city and wander.
That's
just
what I mean.
together.
Because you're
yes.
compatible.
Yes. I will tell you the advice my mother gave me that was not so great. I
Please
still
do.
remember this.
I can't wait to hear
and
it.
It's a cautionary tale. So I remember in theaters when I was a child, she took me to see the movie Grease.
Yeah.
And if you remember at the end of the movie, Sandy changed for Danny.
Yeah.
We stood up and started walking out of the theater. And my mother said in real life he'd change for her.
Oh.
How do you think that messed with this little mind for,
Oh.
a good 20 years of dating? I was
right,
like, I
right.
can change him. I can change him. I can change him. I learned I couldn't.
And we're going to blame it on Grease.
I love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies. But I was like, in my mother's mind, that was true.
Yeah.
In my perspective, in my
Yeah.
experience, that was never true.
Right. In that generation, that was
Yes.
true. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I
well,
finally
all
decided.
those things we had to unlearn.
I know. And I finally, and I say this to women all the time, choose a man who you appreciate, or a woman, whoever it is, choose a partner who you're okay with as they are.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I agree with you. You have to love people the way they are.
Yeah, not that they're never gonna change.
But that's the compatibility part. Really enjoy them the way they are.
Yes.
Right.
It's the quirks that make people so special and
totally.
unique and lovable, I think.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not that we have any quirks, but
No, not at all.
well, I find it interesting. You actually grew up in Montana, right?
I did.
But traveled all over the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't do snow, so being born
Yeah.
in Montana was very unfortunate. But I was fortunate that my parents were international teachers, and so we lived all over the world. And I don't know how else on a teacher's salary a family of 4 could see the world. So I am
Right.
so grateful for that experience.
And you went to Australia and
Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
Yeah, we went everywhere. We specifically lived in Australia and Saudi Arabia, but we were fortunate that when we were in Saudi Arabia, the company my parents worked for would pay us to leave the country in the summer because
Wow.
they knew Americans with nothing to do might get in trouble in a very strict country.
Right.
And so we were able to really plot our own course.
Right.
And,
I
and
think
go
that's what they're going to
wherever.
start doing, paying people to leave the country. It sounds like it.
I might volunteer for
Well,
that.
yeah, exactly. Sign me up.
Sign me up.
So you traveled the world. How did that impact who you are today? I think it's always fascinating because a lot of people have not traveled internationally. It really
it's
is
so
a
important.
great opportunity for you to see other cultures and experience them. How does that? What does that experience bring to the table for you to, in your relationship expert speaking and
It's
training?
a blessing. The interesting thing is, after we did all of that traveling, we ended up back in Montana, and you can't go from homogenous to multicultural to homogenous. It was
Yeah.
such a mind melt, like mind F, excuse me.
Yes.
And I realized that I needed other culture. So in my work with people around the world, I have clients all over the world. I literally thought when I was trying to meet my husband, or when I was looking for somebody who was going to be my partner, I was like, will he speak English? Because I love culture. Culture is so important to me.
Yeah, me too. That's why I'm a city girl.
Yes.
Yeah, I like
because
the
you can
mix.
have that blend. And we live in Los
Yeah.
Angeles, which is such a multicultural city.
Love it.
So it affected me both personally and professionally. I want to be surrounded by culture, and I want people to embrace and understand each other's cultures.
Right. So it opened your mind and your heart up. And,
did.
made you a different person.
I don't know who I'd be, and I'm so glad I'm this version.
With all those experiences you had, what does it bring to the table when you're helping people with relationships?
Compassion.
Oh, that's a big one.
It's huge. We all we're all raised with a certain set of ideals and beliefs and stories. And some of those stories need to be rewritten.
Right.
But it's not to take away from those cultural ideologies that are really valuable to you.
Right.
So when I'm talking to women or men and talking about what's really important to them, it's important to address the cultural aspects and say, if you meet someone who's another religion, let's say, or another race or ethnicity, how will that affect how you feel about your relationship? How will that affect your family?
Could it affect their compatibility?
Yeah.
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It
It
depends
can.
on the people.
My husband's mother's Guatemalan. He's first generation here. And that's important to me, to honor his background as well as my own. And we really cherish being what we call citizens of the world, because we feel at home wherever we go, because we have that passion for exploring other kinds of cultures and food.
And you have a book called How to Find Your Husband, right?
I do.
So what's your story there? How did you find your husband?
I found my husband at a bar.
Okay.
And I tell in the book, How to Meet Your Husband, I say to women specifically, take the blinders and beliefs off about where you think you're going to meet your perfect person who's
love that.
imperfect.
Yeah.
Number one. And number two, get off technology.
Really?
So you can use technology, but don't rely on technology.
Right.
Like I think social media is great. I think dating apps are great. Don't rely on them to the point that you're walking around your life like this, because somebody amazing could be right here and you're not even paying attention.
Yeah, that's a problem with our culture right now with the technology. is We're not
challenge.
always present. And you're right. You
We're
can meet that
rarely
person.
present.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's sad, isn't it? Oh
Yes.
gosh, the culture's changed so much just in our lifetime in the
it's
last
amazing.
10 years, really.
Yes.
I know we do have to unplug and connect and
look in each other's eyes. Nothing replaces
yeah.
this. We can go on Facebook
Right.
and catch up with people, but nothing replaces the energy exchange,
Totally.
the face-to-face, the smile to
Yeah.
smile. So I'm a big believer in use those dating apps,
Yeah.
use those things.
Yeah.
Also walk around in life and make eye contact.
Right. But that's why I don't Skype in my interviews. I always have them in person, because I
love
believe what
that.
you're saying. There's a in-person energy that you can't feel over technology. And
You can't fake it.
yeah, I always say the joy is in the present.
Ooh.
Yeah, I
I love
believe
that.
that. Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And so the more present we would be, the more happy we'd be. And the happier we are, the more likely we are to be a magnet to that right person that's for us.
Like attracts like, and that includes our energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At lisastedman.com, people can find your books and your
Yes.
workshops.
Books, workshops, blogs, social media, all of it.
So if someone is wanting to get into a healthy relationship, they could reach out to you and connect to get into your program to figure out what they're doing wrong, what they're doing right, and how they can actually manifest that ideal partner.
Yeah, and I love what you said because we are doing so much right. So I always want to point people into the positive first because yes, there are things we can change. Let's really celebrate what's working.
Right.
You know, let's celebrate the parts and pieces of you that are already fully expressed and really genuinely open and available. And then let's work on those other pieces.
Isn't it always interesting that sometimes the most successful people are the ones that struggled the most with the relationship part of their life? It's interesting, and I don't know what that is, and I'm sure that's a whole another Oprah. I'm sure that's a whole nother show, but I don't know if there's any simple explanation for that. But
Well, my sense is that
common.
we would much rather learn and follow and be inspired by someone who's been through the fire and knows what it's like to be burned than someone who sits on the sidelines and goes, that might be hot.
I don't know what you mean by that. Like,
Well, I mean, I would rather learn and be inspired by someone, and I think success comes from trial and error.
oh,
So
yes.
if you've been in a million relationships and you think it's me, I suck, I'm a failure, it's actually not. That's a story. So what if we change the story to you got in it, you got messy, you got dirty, and you got burned, and now we're rising from the ashes, and what did you learn?
And then from all those things, all those mistakes we've made, it helps us to know what we don't want. And hopefully by
Yes.
our age, or my age, look at what it is you do want.
Yes.
And then don't settle. I always say that.
Yes.
Don't settle. People step into the wrong thing and then they stay. And it's like, no, life is short. Don't waste your time. And the minute you go, oh, this is not a lifelong thing, let me move on and find the
Yes.
right person.
And that
And
comes
somewhere
from-
inside ourselves, we know.
We do. I
Yeah.
always knew when I was in the wrong relationship. I always knew.
Yeah, I think
but I was
people
like,
normally do.
I'm going to keep going this way, even though I know.
Yeah.
And the other thing you said that I think is so important is know what you do want, because if we walk around going, I don't want, we're
you
going to be
attract the
reminded of,
don't.
but here's more of what I don't want,
Yeah.
rather than, oh, I do want that, and look what just showed up.
Yeah. Well, I'm a firm believer in that, and I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
So keep
I
helping.
love what you're
people.
doing.
Thank you. Keep helping people find the right relationship, and it's a beautiful thing to do. I can only imagine the reward in that when people do find the right person.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And more important to me than that is who they find in themselves along the way.
I love that.
Yeah.
Lisa Stedman, thank you. That would be lisastedman.com, and we will be right back with Rabbi Lori. Thank you for tuning in to the Live, Love, Thrive show, where we bring you powerful and positive programming about women and those who support women's empowerment. It seems by sharing their stories and showing us their talent and potential, they remind us of our own. We ask you to join us weekly by taking a minute to subscribe to our 360 Karma YouTube channel so you get to see every episode of these uplifting and inspiring stories. We all need more of this, yes? And did you know we have the Live, Love, Thrive book on our 360 Karma website and on Amazon? If you enjoy reading books of incredible women who are doing amazing work in the world, you will want to pick up a copy. Also, when you join 360karma.com, you will enjoy our growing video content of expert advice and support, and learn about our workshops and our second annual Women's Conference in West Hollywood, November 3rd and 4th of this year. If you would like to align with a like-minded, purpose-driven community, you will feel at home at 360karma.com. We encourage and support you to live the life you love.
RTB Financial Group empowers women to raise the bar and take control of their financial future. For more information, visit rtbfinancialgroup.com or call Amanda Barr at 424-284-4216. The Live, Love, Thrive program is brought to you in part by Honda of downtown Los Angeles, supporting the equality and empowerment of women.
And we are back with Rabbi Lori Shapiro. Hello, Lori.
Hi, Catherine.
How you doing?
Really great.
Great. I want to mention that you have a place called the Open Temple in
Yes.
Venice, California, which is a
Yes.
very hip area here in Los Angeles, and your place is a very hip place to worship, right?
It's out there.
Yeah.
For the Jewishly curious and those who love us.
What I find so interesting is you were telling me in your background that, you come from a family where it was like an inner a multicultural background.
I'd say interfaith and
Interfaith,
the
yeah.
greater ancestral
Yeah,
constellation.
Jewish and Catholic, was it?
Catholic, Lutheran.
Right, in your grandparents. And so because of that, there wasn't a lot of Jewish tradition.
Mm-hmm.
So so that right there is very odd that you became a rabbi, right? Right?
Yeah, perhaps.
So how did you discover your Jewish, your attraction to wanting to be a rabbi and to study the Jewish faith, since you came from a family that really didn't practice it?
I think
Yeah.
that's really the story of 21st century Jews.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're at a time where so many of us come from miscegenation, intermarriage, lack of affiliation.
Mm-hmm.
And so it comes from me, from growing up in this incredibly Jewish town
Mm-hmm.
where like Shabbat passed by the door every Friday night waiting for me to join her. And I would see people walking. I was in the 5 towns of Long Island, and I would see people walking to Young Israel of Woodmere, this very Orthodox synagogue.
Yeah.
And even if it was a blizzard, they'd walk to shul.
Wow.
And we had no ritual in our lives whatsoever.
So you were witnessing it. You
I was
just weren't
witnessing
participating in it.
and we had nothing.
So did you ask your parents, if we're Jewish and these people are practicing this, how come we don't? I mean, were you curious kid?
No. And ironically, I did go to Hebrew school. Full disclosure, I went to Hebrew school 1 year because my carpool did, and after a year, I said I want to take TAP, and that's what I did instead because that's what the education was kind of seen as, like it was an after-school activity. So there was never any fluidity, and when I was of the bar mitzvah year, I would go to all these bar and bat mitzvahs, and I would remember I would stay in the bathroom, and I would like kind of wait for whatever was happening in there to end.
Yeah.
And I had no interest. And the irony now is I say, there used to be nothing Jewish about me except my nose. And today I say there's everything Jewish about me except my nose because I don't know.
That's funny.
And so the transformation really came about, I think, in its earliest incarnation. When I was 12, I picked up a book in sustained silent reading in 7th grade.
Wow.
And I never knew the significance of it, except today as a 45-year-old woman.
Yeah.
I read The Chosen. And I remember weeping and reading about Danny and reading about his journey and saying, like, how could I ever be like Danny and Reuven?
Mm-hmm.
How could I ever know this when I don't even know what Judaism is?
So for the listeners, that was a book that was a story
By
of
Chaim
Judaism.
Potok, about 2 boys who were friends in a Orthodox realm. And so I remember there was a longing, but that didn't revisit me for another 10 years when after college, in my teen years, I lived in India for a bit, so I was kind of touched by a spiritual awakening through the things I experienced there.
So, but as a kid, you were
Nothing.
an actor and a dancer.
Yes.
And, yeah. You
So I
did-
knew of ritual through theater.
Yeah. Now, that was in New York that you did the
Yes.
acting?
Yeah.
And singing, too?
And singing,
And
yeah.
singing, dancing?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
The whole
And-
thing.
yeah. I could see you doing that.
Okay.
And so was that fun?
It was a wonderful way to grow up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was your childhood.
Yes.
And being in New York, was that because you were near Broadway and
Yeah.
did you want to do that? And
It was an aspiration at one point.
Yeah. I mean, I love New York. I moved here from New York. I'm not from New York, but I just love Broadway. In fact, we're going next month to see Bette Midler and Hello Dolly, and I'm just a huge Broadway fan. I mean, I could see that being a wonderful dream. So at what point did you say, okay, I don't want to do acting, singing, and dancing as an actual career?
I remember the moment.
You remember?
Yes.
Okay.
I was actually a theater major at NYU, and I was in Romeo
Wow.
and Juliet. Yeah, and I was at Tisch, and that summer, the summer before Romeo and Juliet, when we were in rehearsals, I was walking to work one day, and I heard a voice in my head saying, "You're going to transfer to Columbia," and I was like, "What?"
Columbia University. Yeah.
Because I knew it wasn't working. I felt like the industry was a place that didn't have values and didn't match the values upon which I love life. I felt like it was a place with a lot of a lot of darkness and a lot of shadow. And so I wasn't happy doing it. And I
Right.
had to figure out where my joy really was.
Right. It's good
And-
that you could tap into that
Yeah.
and say, oh, this isn't making me happy. Maybe it's not my calling.
Yeah, so I went
Yeah.
to work and I told my boss I have to call Columbia because I'm transferring. And she said, "You got in?" I said, "I haven't applied yet."
Oh, my
And I
gosh.
applied and I went up and I actually went to Barnard because I really was attracted to women's college and women's education. And there I just studied everything. I was a lit major, but I studied everything.
So at this point, you still didn't know what you
Nope.
wanted to be doing.
No, but I knew it wasn't
But you
theater
knew-
because I just
right.
knew, like, it wasn't about, like, I'm someone who wakes up early in the morning and is on the beach or running or doing something that, or prayer. And that world just wasn't
Wasn't
kind
filling your soul.
to it. No. And people
Yeah.
weren't kind. That was
Yeah.
it. I feel like the world, there's so much
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah, and I think there are good people in that industry.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of, but the industry itself as a culture is
The
not
values are-
deep
yeah.
and fulfilling, and I could see that.
Wasn't a choice for
Well,
me.
that-
But I had to figure out what I loved about it. And what I
Right.
loved about it was ritual.
Right.
That's what kept me in it.
Oh, interesting. So
And-
you wanted to say, what could I be doing that would be ritualistic? Yeah.
Like Peter Brook's The Empty Space, a beautiful book about theater and like filling theater with live ritual moments
Right.
is what attracted me to theater in the first place.
Yeah.
And so as I kind of deepened my thought and reflections, it started then with a journey after college going around the world. And because I had at one point studied meditation, I was studying transcendental meditation again in Spain. And I was working my way back to India. And while I was meditating this time, I was like in Spain, I'm like, why do I keep seeing Hasidic men with like payas? I was like, what's with that?
Yeah.
And the woman who was kind of mentoring me said, well, what do you make of that? I said, actually, I'm Jewish, but I know nothing about it.
Yeah.
And she said, maybe you need to know something about it. And so within 6 or 8 weeks, I went backpacking through Italy and Greece, taking boats and ships through the islands and Cyprus, and I landed in Haifa. And I was going to go to a kibbutz to learn about Judaism because I had no idea what they were. I didn't know they were secular.
Yeah.
So I went down to a kibbutz and we switched buses in Jerusalem. And a young girl came to me like proselytizing, come to Heritage House, which is a very orthodox way of doing Judaism. And I said, no, I can't. I'm going to kibbutz to learn about Judaism. Anyway, I went to kibbutz and saw that it wasn't for me. And within 24 hours, I came back to Heritage House and spent a night there and went to the Kotel, the wall.
And this is in Israel.
in Jerusalem.
Right.
It's like Mamesh in Israel. Yeah.
Yeah. So in all these travels and in meditating, you kind of came to realize this was a calling.
I think when we take a space for reflective truth, we live in a very extroverted, exhausted society. And I really think there's something about a quiescent moment to draw ourselves in and hear the still small voice.
I totally agree. We meditate in the mornings, and I feel like it's in the quiet of that you get your downloads of what you're meant to be doing in life, what your calling is, what your purpose is here. And anybody who's not meditating, they're missing out on all the chatter in life that's keeping them from hearing those downloads. And so I think
there are
meditation-
many processes. I think
Yeah.
Meditation is one. I
Yeah.
think that
What
there
are
are other
others?
contemplative traditions.
Yeah.
People can do walking. People can do
Yeah.
Musar tradition, which is a great way of looking at our core values or the qualities of who we are and how we can kind of create a more godly like self, God
Right.
with a lower G. Not sure what God with a big G means.
So, and for those that listening that might not know, so you were studying in an Orthodox environment?
I did. I ended up
Yeah.
from there very swiftly getting to Sfat, and I spent...
And let's tell people what the difference is with Orthodox as opposed to...
Yeah, well, Judaism, we live in a very kind of square time, this early 21st century, where
Yeah.
people are very literal in their kind of separating out what people are.
Yeah.
So we say there's denominational Judaism, like
Yeah.
there are Orthodox, conservative, Reform, but
right.
I truly consider Jewish denominationalism a 19th century Jewish innovation. I think we're all Jews who are Jews, and it cast a very wide net.
Yeah.
And I think that this kind of like separation is what creates division and divisiveness. So orthodoxy, just by a literal translation of the word, it's like a practice of kind of a vertical practice. You're told this is what you should do, and so you do that practice, as if there is a single way to be Jewish. And as we know, as we read any of the Jewish wisdom texts, whether it's the Bible or the Talmud or any rabbinic text, that we always preserve the minority opinion. So if we're always preserving a minority opinion, why would there only be one way of doing things?
Right.
So I think that there's a lot to be said in Jewish wisdom about how we should be looking at what any religion is today.
So your open temple kind of opens the borders to say this is for all Jews and all people that want to be to learn about Judaism.
Yeah,
it's kind of open to everyone.
Yeah, it's saying
that's why it's
exactly,
called open temple.
Exactly. It's
Right.
saying this is an ancient wisdom. And we
Yeah.
live in a time, where post-colonization of the East, we kind of fetishized Eastern wisdom, when so much of Eastern wisdom was being presented in a way in the early 20th century to tell the Indian man, you have dignity in a colonized society. But they created these great pamphlets and these great ways of saying, here is what is wise, that we kind of fetishize it, and we're like, oh, Eastern traditions,
Right.
they've got the wisdom.
Right.
But the truth is, they were just packaging it to build up a people who are being oppressed.
Right.
And when we look at Judaism or any tradition, because all of these traditions are wisdom traditions,
Right.
they all are really saying the same things.
Yeah.
And for some reason, post-Holocaust or I don't know, Jewish self-hatred or anti-Semitism, so many people discount the beauty of the wisdom of what is the oldest Western tradition that has continuously been observed, which is Judaism. And within it
Interesting.
are these nuggets of light
Yeah.
that are just breathless.
Yeah, I have found that in just through my partner in learning about Judaism, just how it creates in the people such good values of giving back and helping people, and that's really what it's all about to me, in my interpretation. And I do hate the way the world has become so secular in that there's Judaism and there's Catholicism and there's Muslims and all this, but when we're all one people and there's one basic thing that we all believe in, and that is love and kindness and the values of helping each other, and so if you look at the core value of any of the religions, that's what they're based on, not exactly what all the people practice, I think. But I love that you're kind of bringing Judaism into the 21st century with your open temple.
For sure.
So I think that's really cool and cutting edge, and
Thank you.
I like that.
Thank you.
So, and I love that if people want to learn about Judaism, the great place to go would be Open Temple.
Yes,
And that you-
and Venice is really in a
Yeah.
renaissance in so many ways. People get very down. Oh, Venice, it's losing its artsy weirdness. And I say there's nothing as artsy and weird in the 21st century as digital internet media. Like, that's really out there. And so all of these young digital artists are coming out, whether they're creating an app, whether they're creating a startup. And to me, the energy and the creativity around these young people is just stunning. And it also happens that the second largest city of where young Jews are moving to is Los Angeles, and I argue so many of them are moving to Venice. So we have this really renaissance of Judaism, and Venice has a rich history of Jews
great.
with Number Our Days, a documentary film in 1977 that won about the Israel Levin Center. So here we are 40 years later, revitalizing Jewish life in what was a vital Jewish community.
And I think it's great that you're making it like hip and today so that young people are attracted to
Yeah,
it.
it's totally out there.
Because how many Jews are left in the world? About 15 million?
depends
or
how you
something like
it
that?
depends how you count.
Yeah,
so
and so
somewhere
it
around
is
there.
so important that that if you're Jewish, that you are teaching the traditions to the young people in a way that feels hip in today, so that they want to continue it, because. It is something that it's narrowing the number of people, and it's so important for that tradition to be carried on, but it's got to be presented in a way that's appealing to the young people to
Yes.
carry it on. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually love that you said it, because
Yeah.
when you look at Judaism through a civilization lens, Judaism has always been taught in a way that was hip in today.
Yeah.
Whatever era you're in, if
Yeah.
it's the Kalam influence from the medieval times in the Muslim world, we used that methodology within Judaism. If it was the idea of the Greeks and what was happening in Greek philosophy, and Maimonides bringing that into the fold. So there were always counterpoint to what was going on in the greater world.
That's great.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, but it took you 13 years to become a rabbi, right?
Yes.
Are there a lot of female rabbis today?
There are about, I'd say roughly somewhere between 500 and 600, perhaps. Sorry if I'm off.
Out of how many?
Out of how many rabbis?
Yeah.
I don't know. Everyone in Israel and their cousins are rabbis.
Yeah.
So I'd say there are a lot of guys.
Yeah.
Several
So it's a
thousand
small
for sure.
percentage.
Yes,
You're in
for
a small
sure.
percentage.
The first rabbi was ordained Regina Jonas in Germany in the 1930s, and she unfortunately died in the Holocaust. And then in America, it was 1972, Sally Priesand in the Reform Movement. And then in 73, I believe, the Reconstructionists followed. And then in 85, it was Amy Alberberg in the conservative movement. Yeah.
Wow.
And today we even have Orthodox rabbis.
What do you
more
like
women.
most about being a rabbi?
I think it's just the incredible diversity of what I get to do, whether it's aesthetic, whether it's a front row seat in someone who's in a time of real need, death and dying, or if it's a time of real joy, a wedding.
Baby naming. I was
baby
at one of
naming,
those
yeah.
recently.
But the rituals themselves,
Yeah.
it's, theater again, if we go back to that theme,
Yeah.
is about, bringing people to life through a ritual experience, and its origins are in religion.
Isn't it interesting that you started as a child in the theater
Yes.
and you now have your open temple in a theater?
Yes.
You came like full circle with exactly what you were meant to be doing
Yeah.
in the theater.
A long time in the making,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Life often is full circle like that, isn't it? It's like a
Beautiful.
puzzle. Oh, I did this or this or this because I was meant to do that. Yeah.
Well
Yeah.
said.
So, you're married
Yes, I am.
to Joel, and
Dr.
who's
Joel
lovely.
Shapiro, yes.
Yeah, lovely man. And so he, you said when you guys met, he was like, "Oh no, I wouldn't
Oh,
date a rabbi."
I was crossed off the list. Yeah.
So how did you break through that?
We went on a hike, and it was beautiful. And there was no topic we couldn't talk about with one another.
Isn't that great
It
when
was
you connect
endless.
with someone like that?
Yeah,
It's
it is.
magical, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. Tonight
Yeah.
we're going up to Malibu because he's filming a dance that he's in. So he'll be in Leo Carrillo, and he'll be doing some dance.
So he's a dancer.
He's a dancer, he's a doctor, he's a performance artist, he's an environmental activist, he's a lot of things. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, when you have that unspoken connection, it's like we were talking about with Lisa Stedman earlier about relationships. It's that compatibility,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And when somebody used to tell me, when you know, and I didn't really know what that meant for the longest time. I would date people, I just knew that they weren't forever, But then when I finally met that person, it was like, oh, now I understand what they mean. When you know, you know. It's a great feeling, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
You look so happy.
I am.
And I know you have two lovely kids.
It's a lot of work. We were up all last night, so
Yeah.
I have a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old.
Oh, yeah, that'll keep you busy.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you're a lovely family. And I'm so happy to have you on. And I know it's so great that you have Open Temple in Venice. And I hope that our listeners will come and visit you and see what it's about and experience and understand this 21st century approach to Judaism.
Yes.
That's
with
open to all.
goats and we had LAPD officers performing Torah service and lots of different interesting, I call it disruptive moments.
And when do you all meet? It's at the
Our big Friday is Third Friday, Shabbat.
Third
And
Friday
if you're
of every
interested in
month.
more info, just go to opentemple.org.
Right, which we have up on the screen.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to attending myself.
Fantastic.
And I know I've been to some of your rituals, and I just loved what you did. It was very special, and I love this particular religion, like I said, because I believe it is all about giving back and loving and generosity. If I had to pick one word, that's what I would say about it: generosity. Yeah, of spirit and of
The
self.
Hebrew word I would say
Yeah.
is not quite generosity, but it is a generous word. It's chesed, which is loving kindness.
Hesed.
But a loving kind. Oh, you said that well. Yeah. So it's a loving kindness that just keeps generating itself from generation to generation.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, that's a beautiful way for us to end the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for being
Thank
here.
you for having me. This is nice.
And we will be back next week, and same time, Wednesdays here at UBN. Thank you for tuning in. Hugs and happiness.